Hello, my name is Gavin, and do you like being possessed? Having the spirit of a higher being inhabit your body? Well, that's the topic for this video. The book I will be analyzing today is Magic, Witchcraft, and Religion, a reader in the Anthropology of Religion by Pamela A. Morrow. For anyone who is unaware, anthropology can basically be summed up as studying humans, so in this case, human religion. She is a professor of anthropology at Willamette University. I will be going over Chapter 5, Altered States of Consciousness and the Religious Use of Drugs, with a specific focus on Trance and Possession by I. M. Lewis. I'm Lewis is actually Eoin Meridian Lewis, who is a professor of anthropology at the London School of Economics. They actually do a lot more than just economics, so the name can be confusing. A quick reading of this section tells us a few things. Firstly, trances and possessions can both be labeled under an altered state of consciousness. Secondly, many cultures throughout the world have some form of an altered state of consciousness. For example, easily the most well-known is reaching enlightenment in Buddhism. This is a, quote, good altered state. I'll go into good and bad altered states in a moment. For a less religious comparison, hypnosis would also be considered an altered state of consciousness. Thirdly, as our medical knowledge advanced, possessions, as defined by the Church, became less common, but it still appears today in many Abrahamic religions. Lastly, the section acknowledges the difference between good, enlightened states, which itself splits into many different categories, or evil states, like demons. The first passage within this text I'd like to read out in detail further is about shaking, a phenomena where a person gets seizure-like shakes and believes it to be divine possession. Allow me to read it aloud. The ideological leap from a non-mystical to a mystical evaluation of trance may be illustrated by the Indian Shaker cult founded by John Slocum in Washington state at the end of the last century. Here, uncontrollable bodily agitation and trance states achieved in emotionally charged church services are referred to as shaking, in the manner we have already seen amongst this Samburu tribe of Kenya. But whereas for the Samburu this condition has no mystical implications, amongst the Shakers, as with the early Quakers, each seizure represents a manifestation of the Holy Spirit. Trance indeed is both personalized and objectified, so that an Indian speaks of his shake as a distinctive vital force or power, and people will say in support of their convictions, so and so is true because my sheikh told me so. Here, trance has become divine possession. After a little research, the Indian Shaker cult, or church, whatever you want to call it, is a Christian denomination and was created in 1881 by Saxon shaman John Slocum and his wife Mary. The backstory for Indian Shakers church founding is as follows. John dies from sickness in 1881, gets a vision from an angel telling him he's been a bad Indian, gets revived, gets sick again a couple months later, and while his wife is praying, she begins to shake and tremble uncontrollably. He recovers and credits his wife's convulsions as his healings. As strange as this story is, remember, it's 1881, and no one had MRIs to check anyone's brain for abnormalities. Continuing from that, shakes from possessions draw this topic into a whole new subject of faith healing, where priests or other high-ranking religious authorities use prayers and gestures to call upon divine intervention to cure disease and disability. This works about as often as psychics win the lottery. This coincides with the second passage I'd like to read. Frequently, for example, illness is seen as a form of possession, yet the possessed patient is far from being in trance. Indeed, it is regularly only in the actual treatment of possession, either by exorcism or by a procedure which aims at achieving a viable accommodation between victim and processing agency. That trance, in the full sense, is induced. If you don't see the comparison between this passage and faith healing, let me explain. Faith healers try to cleanse the body of illness, in the same way an exorcist tries to get rid of demons, with those healing effects being nothing more than the adrenaline from the charisma and showmanship, with those effects fading once the sermon is over. In conclusion, trances and possessions have been a part of human culture / folklore ever since the rise of religions, creating stories and scares for eons. However, faith healers are not an acceptable alternative to modern medicine. If you are suffering from any mental or physical conditions, seek the appropriate professionals. Thank you for watching.